So it's not
Absolutely.
like my opinion, it's not your opinion, it's research, or criminologists have brought this research forward. Also, does this have a bearing and effect on what they call joint enterprise?
Absolutely, and we've seen this very recently in Moss Side, and it's been used a long time. So, for example, with this joint enterprise laws, what they can do is they can prosecute a whole group of people for the actions of one. I mean, people may think, well, if a whole gang is involved in a violent act and somebody dies as a result of that violent act, then all should be culpable. And there may be circumstances where that is the case. But what we've seen very recently in Moss Side was a case where 13 young people were all charged with murder, even though many of them weren't even at the scene at the time. But this use of a gang narrative through associations on social media and videos and things on social media were used by the prosecution to say that this group of youths all of them had intended for somebody to die, which was unproven, really.
So, what would you like to see us ordinary people do in order to help you down in Parliament, in order to help ourselves? What would you recommend?
Well, there was some research out last week, I think, again on how targeted a lot of this police operation is disproportionately against young black men, largely. And I think we need a bit more outcry about that. So I think your event is so important to build up knowledge, build up that this is a real issue that we've got to combat. And I will continue to raise it in Parliament, and I'll continue to raise it elsewhere. But I think the more we can get the grassroots side of that as well, I think that would be really important. So we should be asking questions in whatever organisations we work in. Who is in who, from charities, voluntary groups, others, asking the police and the other statutory services, what knowledge do you have about the matrix, about the use of these labels? Can you justify them? So really asking some questions in what in the work that you do and others do. Let me know, let others know, so that we can build up this evidence base that shows that this approach is disproportionately.
And it's not really the right approach to solving the gang crime. And I think from research that I've read, remove ethnicity from the trouble, whatever that trouble is, and then we might begin to solve that problem. But I think when they add ethnicity to it, it then becomes a racial issue, and we're dealing more with the racial issue, which, yes, we do have to deal with that as well, but I think in the long run what we want to deal with is to stop our young people getting involved in serious crime or street crimes.
Absolutely. And I think it's also, I think, now causing quite a big problem between the police and the community, because it's a breakdown of trust, because certain communities, rightly in my view, feel that they are being disproportionately targeted with these tactics, whether it be joint enterprise or the organised criminal gang labelling and so on. They are being disproportionately targeted, and therefore there's a resentment building up between them and the police, who they don't feel are treating them fairly, and that's no way to resolve what's happening in the streets either.
So your recommendation then is, which I think is what we're trying to do here, get the knowledge out there to people so that they understand what this war on gangs was meant to do and what it has done, understand how it's being used, and I suppose find more data to prove that it's being used wrongly.
Absolutely. And I think ask some probing questions through the organisations that you're involved with. Just check with how people are approaching these issues so that they are no longer targeting.
As service providers, when it comes to...
I was going to ask that actually. One question I was going to ask, because you mentioned the police, because there's lots of other stakeholders that this information has been cascaded down to. You've got DWP, we've got social services, PRU units. What kind of questions should we be asking them? Because they may turn around and say, well, the policy was given to us to use and work by, and we're just using it. you know, what questions could we be asking them? I mean, what legitimate questions should we be asking them?
I think we should, people who are being passed on this information, I think should be asking questions about how was this arrived at, and if that is not your view of that person, then you should be questioning that, because as I say, you know, really what, you know, very few of the serious organised criminals who operate in gangs, very few of them are young people. You know, these are like, you know, they're more experienced than that.
That's right.
So there shouldn't really be that many young people getting themselves targeted at that. And my question always is, well, if you suddenly think there's a 14-year-old who is involved in involved in a serious organised network, then is that not? Is he or she not a victim themselves?
That's right. Exactly.
Do you think they're not being groomed and used?
Exactly, and being let down somewhere along the line within their lives by an adult.
Absolutely,
You know,
or probably a collection of adults and institutions.
Yes.
But they're often being groomed to transport drugs and so on, if they are. But I think there's a lot of them who've been given these labels who are not actually worthy of it anyway.
All right, thank you, Lucy. Thank you very much.